couple of items. Remember that we love to have your participation in the webinar. In fact, we feel it's best when you're conversing with us, asking the questions, or commenting on the conversation. So you can use either your phone, which we recommend because it seems to be a little bit more reliable. We'll show you the phone controls on the right-hand side of your screen in just a moment. Or you can use your computer microphone. Some of you have those, and those work fine as well. Just remember that if we are coming to you to listen to you ask a question, that you just turn down the audio on your computer so that everybody can hear it. We don't get that echo feedback, which kind of sounds cool sometimes, but not always. So just a reminder of the controls on the right-hand side. If you ever want to get rid of the control box just temporarily, just push the orange button, and it will fold into the right-hand side. And you click it again, and it will open it back up. If you click on the audio plus sign by the word audio, you'll get the information on using your microphone and speakers. And you can always check those out if you aren't sure if it's working properly or not. But we'll also do an audio check in just a moment. If you would prefer to use your telephone, or you lose your microphone, or it's not working very well, just click on the telephone button. And once you do, the box will expand, and we'll give you a couple of phone numbers to call with an access code and a PIN number. I tend to go back to here because I forget sometimes if I lose audio that I have to access or actually enter both an access code and an audio PIN, so don't forget that in case you lose control today. Lose control of audio, that's what we're talking about. There's the audio PIN for an example. And at any time during the conversation today, we encourage you to submit questions or comments. We'll read those when we can, and we can get to them. And we love hearing from you throughout the conversation. The other option is to raise your hand, use a little hand-raising icon. And even better than listening or listening to me read your questions, we'd like to hear you ask the question or make the comment, so we'll unmute your microphone and let you raise your hand. Also, just a reminder that the webinar will be recorded today so that you can find some more information or go back to listen to parts that you missed later on, and it'll be on the SAS community website, and Jennifer will be talking about that a little bit later on in our broadcast. Also a reminder that you can get up to 5 Act 48 credits for participating today. We ask that you at least participate in 3 webinars, and again, today's webinar can count for that. Then I'll show you in just a moment the webinar response form. Please return that to us in 5 days. The form looks pretty simple, and is pretty simple actually. It just requires your contact information at the very top, and then a couple of paragraphs on each of the 3 primary questions there, your main takeaways and personal responses, etc. Just fill that out after the webinar is done today, and then on the left-hand side you see the email address. Send that to paplc@leaderconsulting.com, and we will be able to register those and record the fact that you've participated in our webinars. So again, if you have any questions during that about Act 48 or how to use your microphone, etc., please use your question box or raise your hand, and we'll be glad to help you out. We have a couple of folks who are going to be talking with us today besides you, and let me just very briefly give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about. About 2 weeks ago, we asked you to give us your comments on what you'd like to see and the remaining of the PLCs through the spring, so we'll share those survey responses with you. We have a very special guest. Sharon Kinney is with us. She'll be talking about the Common Core, and just kind of an update for you in case you're still a little fuzzy on the Common Core elements. Sharon will certainly be able to help. And then we have 2 literacy coaches with us this morning, Robin Grimes and Tracy Stetler, who will be talking about literacy strategies for cosmetology, very practical strategies that you can employ. A couple of remaining items. If you have someone with you who does not show up on the participant screen, we only on the participant screen can see 1 name. So if someone else is with you, if you would use the question box and type in the others who are joining you on the webinar, we would appreciate that. And we're going to give you a poll in just a moment. But first, I'd like to do an audio check with those who are with us in participating. And so I'm going to unmute your microphone one at a time and ask you to say your name and tell us where you are from this morning. And Amy Sassos, I believe, I am unmuting your phone. Can you say hello this morning?
Hello, Amy Sassos, Cosmetology, Central Westmoreland Career and Technology Center.
Great. Tell us again, where are you at?
The Central Westmoreland Career and Technology Center in New Stanton, PA.
Okay. Anyone else with you?
No.
Okay. So it sounds like it's a speakerphone a little bit, so that's why I had a little trouble understanding. And when we ask, if you're going to ask some questions or make some comments, that will be great. We'll just ask you maybe to get a little closer to the microphone or the phone. Must be Morning Bell.
That is, yes.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Amy. Good morning to Ben Shaw. Ben, do you have a microphone that works?
Yep, good morning.
Great. Where are you from?
Eastern Westmoreland Career and Technology Center in Latrobe. And our cosmetology instructor had another obligation this morning, and I work quite a bit in his classroom as an English teacher, and we've been working on literacy for a while around the school, but Glenn and I are pretty close and do a lot of work together, so I know his curriculum and the literacy aspects of it pretty well.
Fantastic. We're going to come back to you, Ben, and ask you to make some comments on what you're doing in the classroom. Fantastic. Bonnie Skinner is with us, I believe. Bonnie?
Yes.
Say hello?
Hi, I'm Bonnie Skinner, cosmetology instructor, Jefferson County Du Bois AVTS.
Fantastic. Welcome, Bonnie. Glad to have you with us this morning. Cheryl Olson?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Fayette County Career and Technical Institute, and I have Leanne Orris, our literacy coach in the building, here with us.
Fantastic. Welcome to both of you. Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah. Julianne?
Yes, I'm Julianne Siskowski. I'm a cosmetology instructor here at the Lehigh Career and Technical Institute in Lehigh County.
Fantastic. Well, you probably know Sharon pretty well, huh? Sharon Kenny?
Yes, I do. I did not know she was presenting today.
So surprise, surprise. Great. Well, thanks, Julianne, for joining us. Sharon McGuire, good morning. Possible that some of you don't have a microphone that works, and that's certainly fine. Sharon, we're not hearing you, but that's okay. You're welcome to participate via the question box or raising your hand. I guess that's certainly fine. Kathy Estep, are you with us?
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm from the Career and Technology Center.
Great. Can you say it one more time? I think I cut you off.
I'm from the Franklin County Career and Technology Center.
Franklin County. Great. Kathy, thank you very much for joining us. The microphone works great.
Great.
Mabel Polk, good morning. Not sure if Mabel's microphone works or not. Okay. Mary Hine. Mary, does your microphone work?
Matt, this is Jennifer Graham's. Mary entered a note that she doesn't have a microphone today.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mary, for letting us know. I don't always, I should read my notes. So thanks, Jennifer. Michelle Warney, or Warney? Okay, Michelle may not have a working microphone. How about Michelle Oko? Good morning, Michelle. Welcome. I've got two microphones for you, so I'm not sure if either one of them works. We'll keep trying that. How about Tricia Adams? Tricia, are you with us this morning?
Yes, I'm Tricia Adams from Reading Millburg Career and Technology Center.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning to Sandy Himes. Sandy, you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Sandy Himes. I'm the director at Lehigh Career and Technical Institute, and just sitting in listening to what's happening with the PLCs.
Sandy's been great. She's been listening to a couple of these for us. So and I always forget to ask for your input, Sandy, so jump in any time. We love having you here with us.
Okay, thank you.
We have another Sandy. Sandy, is it Sandy Zulik? Is that how you pronounce your last name, Sandy?
Yes, that's correct. My name's Sandra Zulik. I'm from the Indiana County Technology Center.
Wonderful. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Stacy Rudy.
Yes, I'm here from the Berks Career and Technology Center West Campus.
Great. Sounds like you have someone there who's coaching you.
Our IT person here is just to make sure we were having a little bit of problems with hearing you and connections again today.
Oh, okay. Sorry
Wayne
about that.
Ronfon's here helping me.
Oh, that's great. Is it working better now?
Yes, it is.
Fantastic. Good to have a good IT person. Thanks, Stacy. Glad we could.
We do. We have a great IT person.
Yeah, good. It's always good to keep them happy, too, I feel. Stephen Beers, are you with us? Okay. How about Tony Poper? Is it Tony? Is that how you pronounce your last name, Tony?
Yes, that's correct.
Where are you from?
Franklin County Career and Technology Center in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tony, for joining us. And Tracy Scholl. I don't know if Tracy has a microphone or not.
I do, yes.
Great. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Tracy Scholl. I'm from the Berks Career and Technology Center East Campus.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you all for joining us. If we missed somebody, let me go back to Karen McGuire. She has her hand up. I don't know if I can unmute your microphone. Karen, did you have a question or a comment? Okay, looks like we're going to work that issue out there with the microphone. So welcome, everyone, and we're glad that you're here. Before we introduce our next speaker, we want to do something just a little bit different. Let's go through our survey responses, and then we're going to ask for you to do just a very short survey. We'll call it a poll on our first topic on the Common Core in just a moment. First, again, we did a quick survey of all of you about 2 weeks ago. We thank all of those who gave us your responses. Here's just a summary of the responses that we received. We asked if you would be very interested or somewhat interested or not interested in any of the topics that are in the slanted portion on the bottom part of your screen. And you can see that the one that seems to get the most overwhelming response for being something that you would find interesting to talk about during our webinars is the NOCTI assessment. So we have noted that. We weren't able to get someone to talk about the NOCTI assessments today, but you can certainly ask your questions, and we hope to have someone with us down the road at one of the future PLCs to talk about those. Also high on the list were discussions about materials and resources, the POS, the Program to Study task list, and student engagement. So 3 other major issues that you said. And then one issue that was next in highest in ranking was more about Common Core. And so again, Sharon Kinney is going to be joining us this morning to talk about those issues. So we appreciate all the responses that we received. A couple of other just little comments that we got from those of you who participated. You said that you'd like to see some discussions about increasing rigor and relevance into your lesson plans. We have a carpentry teacher who said that he suggested maybe that we just focus on one topic during the PLC and then everybody shared whatever resources they have, which may not be a bad idea at all. Others of you suggested maybe more teaching strategies that enhance student achievement and literacy, and that's why we have our literacy instructional coaches with us today. And math, we will be talking about math integration into CTE during our next PLC webinar next month. And then, again, we do have a cosmetology teacher who said that she already integrates daily reading and would like to hear more about that and what others are doing. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. 2 of the issues that you described in the survey, Common Core and some literacy strategies. Again, we love to have your comments as we go along today. So before we jump into our Common Core update, before I introduce Sharon, I'm going to try something that's just a little bit different for us, and that is to ask you to submit a poll. If I just figure out how to do it, that would be the best thing to do. I think, I always click on the wrong button on these things, but I'm going to try to launch a poll. Let me see if I can do this. And you should see on your screen, at least I hope you do, a poll. And if you'll take just a moment and answer one of the 3 questions, give you about 30 seconds, and that will allow us to see how your level of understanding of the Common Core is. Is everyone seeing that? Looks like we're getting some responses there. I'll give you about 15 more seconds to fill in your responses. I don't know if any of you use these kind of clickers with your kids or your students, but they're kind of nice because you get instant feedback on the polls. So about 5 more seconds, and I'm going to close the poll. So make your choice. And I'm going to close the poll. And then I'm going to try to share it with you. So let me know if you don't see that. think the results of the poll are there. And so this is great. This is very interesting to see where you're at the level of understanding of Common Core. Hopefully all of you can see that. And then I'm going to introduce Sharon Kinney. Sharon is instructional coach at Lehigh Career and Technical Center. So Sharon, good morning. Does your microphone work for us?
Yes, it does. How's the volume?
Volume sounds great.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. And I'm looking at your poll results, and I think that's very typical of where almost everybody in the state is. And actually, having a basic understanding, that's really great.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to go ahead and switch the slides over to you, Sharon, and so you can show your part of the presentation.
Okay. So Matt, am I on? Can you see my slides?
It's coming up, I think, so let's take a look.
Are we up?
Jennifer, can you see the slides? I'm having a little trouble seeing them.
I am still seeing the poll.
Okay. So did you get a button to push there, Sharon?
No, I did not.
Okay. So maybe I didn't really make you presenter. Let me try it. It says that I did, so let's see. I wonder what that means then. I wonder who is presenter.
Oh, let's see. It says hide the poll results. Let me try hiding the poll. There we go.
Maybe it's underneath the poll.
I think I just hid those, so Sharon, do you see? It's showing you as the presenter.
It is.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready? I haven't clicked anything. Oops.
You should have a button to click to allow us to show your screen. It might be hidden under all those other screens.
Nope. There it is.
There we go.
Okay. So are we good now?
We are. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Good morning. As Matt said, I am one of two instructional coaches at Lehigh Career and Technical Institute. And before I was fortunate enough to come to LCTI, I was a curriculum and instruction at our regional intermediate unit at IU21. While I was there, it gave me a multitude of opportunities to work with the Pennsylvania Department of Education and to get behind the scenes and understand the Common Core a little deeper. And as I say about understanding the Common Core, as we're moving forward in other districts within our region, we sometimes get tangled up with the two Common Cores. And if you look at your screen, I have it split. I tried to split it in two. There's the National Common Core State Standard, which is the top bullet, and then there's the Pennsylvania Common Core State Standards, which is the bottom bullet. They're two state standards, however, they're alike, but yet they're very different in some ways. To illustrate this, if you look in the pink box, and my cursor's there to show you, I focused on geometry. And I know in cosmetology, cutting the hair at different angles is precision. And here you have A1 standard and A2. For geometry, yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think that we're having some trouble seeing your slides move. So I'm not sure if it's something on your screen.
Let me hit show my screen again.
Okay, that might be good. There we go. Now we're seeing what you're showing. So we missed what you just described a little bit visually.
Oh, you know, Matt, I'm so glad you told me that. Well, as I said, we have the National Common Core, which is the upper bulleted item, and we have the Pennsylvania Common Core, which is the lower bulleted item. And my cursors, if you follow my cursor, that might help to guide you. Just to illustrate the differences between the two Common Cores, I picked geometry randomly, but it's very similar across every content. And I picked A1 and A2 from the National Common Core, and you can get a sense of the language that's there. If you go down to the bottom of the screen in the blue box, I picked Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. If you notice, the language is very different. So that gives you a sense, and as we work with publishers and we work with online resources. As I said earlier, sometimes we get tangled up, and I think it's very important that when we look at the Common Core, we're looking at the Common Core for Pennsylvania. Although Pennsylvania mirrors the content and the rigor of the National Common Core, the organization and the design is distinctly different. Continuing to talk about the Pennsylvania Common Core, I thought there are 4 grounding points. The first one is the State Board adopted the Common Core standards in July of 2010. Now, if we stop and just think about that, our Pennsylvania Common Core standards are 2.5 years old, and if anyone knows or has a 2.5-year-old, you know what they're really like. And I have a 2-year-old grandson, and sometimes what he tells me is a little abbreviated, and I'm trying to interpret, and he's a little wobbly on his feet. And so I think if we look at how we're aligning the Common Core and the Pennsylvania Common Core, we need to keep in mind this is a relatively new initiative. But with the vision of the State Board, they said we're looking for fewer standards, we're looking for higher, challenging, rigorous standards, but we're also looking for clearer standards. And the second bulleted item mirrors the illustrates what I said in the previous slide. The Common Core Pennsylvania mirrors the national standards, but the content and the rigor is the same. The third bulleted item refers to the fact that, you know, we're throwing around this language, the Common Core standards, the Common Core standards, but there really only are 2 content areas currently that have Pennsylvania Common Core standards, and that's English Language Arts. And I just want to stop here for a second, because this is actually for English teachers. This has been a big shift. They're ELA teachers now. They're not English teachers. They're English Language Arts, which means they're responsible for reading, writing, speaking, and listening, which in the past wasn't embraced by the field, although they did address it. Now it's specifically addressed. The fourth bullet, this is where CTE becomes involved. Literacy is a shared responsibility, and it's explicitly stated in 2 documents. The first one is the Pennsylvania Common Core for Reading and Writing for History and Social Studies, and the last arrowed item is the Pennsylvania Common Core Reading and Writing for Science, and it's not listed here, but it's science, math, and technical subjects. And this is where we get to the CTE labs. Now, and I'll stop. I've given you a lot of, I think, a lot of big picture information. Are there any questions at this point?
Feel free to write them in the question box or raise your hand. Use your little hand-raising icon, and we'll unmute your microphone. And you can also enter them while Sharon continues to talk, and we'll get those as soon as she takes a break.
Thank you.
Sharon, no questions right now, but let's.
Then we're going to keep on moving.
Great.
What you see at the top of this slide are screenshots of the title pages for reading and for writing for the technical subjects for your labs. And as I said earlier, there's some major shifts, things that we really haven't addressed before. The first, building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction. This is the good news for CTE teachers. ELA is now required to teach 70% nonfiction across the course, across the content area. That's a major big shift, and if you remember your high schools with that emphasis on Hamlet and Chaucer and Shakespeare, and you know, I have to tell you, sometimes that makes my stomach kind of like cramp up when I think, oh, Shakespeare, I wasn't really sure what they were trying to say some of the time. But the shift is now ELA teachers need to pull in your text, and they need to help students engage with that type of learning, because let's face it, as they move on to their career and to their colleges, they're reading expository text. They need to continue to learn in their field, and this is very exciting. I mean, bottom line is, and the research demonstrates this, how many of us read Chaucer at night for pleasure, or we read Chaucer, not to minimize the value of Chaucer, but as we move in our lives, reflecting on it for valuable professional reasons, unless you're an ELA teacher. The second bullet is regular practice with complex text. That means they're asking that the text we are reading becomes more difficult. The research says that many of our kids that go on past 12th grade are not really ready to make meaning from higher challenging text. And so that's something we need to address. And in your fields, the academic language. We need to give those kids, which I know Robin and Tracy, they have so many wonderful ideas that you'll get later. And I know many of the CTEs are already implementing and addressing this. The last one, and this was a shift, this was a major surprise a couple months ago for many of us, for a lot of CNI directors. Reading, writing, and speaking are grounded in evidence from text, both literary and informational. And I'm going to share something later on that comes back. Don't forget that bulleted item. This is just a sample of addressing the academic language, an interactive word wall, and I'm sure Robin and Tracy will share many more ideas on how you can do this, and you're probably already doing it. The research says that for our struggling readers, and I don't know what your percentage is, but we do get to see a significant population. They need to be exposed to the language. The research has a huge range between 40 and 70 times before they really own that language. And here's one way you can tell this was an October theme in the cosmetology lab. Now I'm going to just spiral back to evidence from the text. We created this poster and we started distributing it. If you look, we use the text, why you need a high school diploma. And I think everybody can answer that. We don't even have to read the text. But in the keystones that every one of your students will have to take, they'll be asked an answer, part A. And so they'll be able to give the answer in many cases. But B, how do you know that? What line of the text tells you this? And this is where the keystones are going to say to the students, I want you to write down explicitly where in the text you got the information that led you to A. And here's something that surprised many of us. The way the keystones are structured, they can answer A correctly, but if they don't answer B or they don't answer it correctly, they won't get credit for any of the question. I don't know about you, but that surprised us. And if you look below at the bottom section, here are examples of where the kind of language the keystone is looking for. So at this point, I'm going to ask, Matt, I said I'd be happy to share this poster so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't know if anyone else out there is interested in it, but we believe in working smarter, not harder. So let Matt know. If you want the poster, we'd be happy to share the template.
Sounds great. Why don't you send it to me if you can after this broadcast, Sharon, and if it's okay with you, then I can distribute it to those who say that they would be interested.
Okay, I would be happy to.
Fantastic, thanks.
So aligning what you're doing to the CTE lab, this is a little tricky, and here again, pulling from the academic standards for science and technical subjects. There are 18 standards that CTE labs need to address, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shift and take you out to the PowerPoint, or from the PowerPoint to a Word document. Here we have them listed. There are 10 standards for reading, and I'm going to call your attention to Standard A for technical subjects. Cite specific textual evidence to support analysis of science and technical tests, attending to important distinctions. You don't need me to read this to you, but what I do want to call your attention to is Standard A requires them to provide that textual evidence. That is such a big, big deal as we move forward in Pennsylvania. And here again, Matt, we're very thrilled to share this with you. Matt and Jennifer, we'll send this to you unless I already have. And please feel free. It's just a compilation of what the document says.
Fantastic. We do have that one. Sharon, you've given it to us, and so we'll share that with everyone else on the call. Wonderful.
Okay. Oh, let me get back.
You should be doing the technical issues here. You're good.
Oh, I have you fooled. Oh, thank you. You made my month. Okay, so are we still at the screen? Who's doing what? How we address this, aligning what's happening in the CTE lab to the document, the Pennsylvania Common Core Reading and Writing, we distributed that sheet that you have there, and we just asked lab teachers to read and discuss each of the 18 Common Core standards, Pennsylvania Common Core standards, and then we asked them individually to just identify those PA Common Core standards that they use within their CTE task list. And we gave them a grid which looks something like this, and they just put check marks where they felt. And here again, I want to bring you back. This is toddler. So what this matrix looks like today may not look like when it becomes more mature and as we grow and mature with the Pennsylvania Common Core standards. But you'll see here what our cosmetology lab shared was the task list is the second column. Then you have the task name. And if you move farther over to your right, you'll see 12A is the first standard, B, C, D. And this is where they felt their task lists addressed the standards. Just to give you some comparison, here's how our AutoTech reviewed the standards. Each lab addresses different needs. And as we grow and mature, when we become 3-year-olds, this may not look the same. Here is our carpentry lab. And again, comparing. And this was just our first time out of the gate. And in conclusion, I just want to kind of wrap our arms around this big ball, the standards. They don't tell you how to teach, but they tell us what our students have to know and be able to do. They kind of give us a roadmap for our teachers and parents. So that being the last slide, I'm open to any questions, comments, concerns. We'd love to hear what other people are using.
Fantastic. So this is your time to ask a Common Core question that you have not been able to ask maybe in other places. So raise your hand icon. We'll unmute your microphone, or put a comment in the question box, and we'll just read it to Sharon. And we can do that anonymously if you prefer. And there are no bad questions, because I think everyone across the country actually is still figuring out what to do with Common Core.
And we're moving forward. We're just 2.5-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt, would you like me to pass the presenter screen back to you?
Yes, why don't you do that, and we'll still wait for some more comments. I'm going to unclick the microphone for Sandy Zulick. Sandy, did you have a comment or a question for Sharon?
Yes, I think what's difficult with, and I think what's difficult as a cosmetology teacher often is looking at exactly what the standard is looking for, and then taking that and applying it to the curriculum. A lot of times, it's language that you may not be used to seeing if you're not an English teacher. And so as a result of that, you're actually doing it and using it frequently in your lessons. However, the way that it's stated might confuse and cause it to be a little bit difficult to determine exactly what it is,
Totally agree. Absolutely. And as we move forward, we're refining the language, and I think frequently we have more questions than we have answers.
So part of that question is just unpacking the standard and trying to understand and interpret it, and then the other part is correlating it to the cosmetology standards and lessons. Do you find that to be a difficult challenge for a lot of teachers, Sharon?
Yes, I do. And what it looks like in one lab can look totally different in another lab. It's we're told what we need to do, but we're trying to put the pieces together to figure out what that looks like in the classroom.
Those of you on the call, are you getting help or support? Do you feel like you're getting the information you need to understand the Common Core? And while you answer that, I'll read a comment. Stephen says they would love to have a copy of the templates, and so we'll get copies of the templates out to everyone. Sandy, your microphone's still open. Did you want to make a comment? Do you feel like you're getting the support you need?
I think that sometimes it is difficult to understand clearly what exactly they want and how we're presenting it. Is that acceptable? Is it to the level that they would consider it something that we should be tagging that we're doing? Those are questions.
Right. Well, Sharon, go ahead.
I was just going to say I agree. I really do. And we're working with our academic center very intensely to align that. And because some of the Common Core standards are such significant shifts in how we used to do business, we're investing. It takes a lot of time, like anything else, to do it well, and a lot of work. But it's exciting work. We're seeing what we've done so far because of the Common Core has been very, very exciting. The other thing is we're finding the use of technology is just unbelievable. How we can reach the standards in ways that we hadn't thought about before. So that sounds it's a time issue, but it's worth the payoff. It's bringing our kids up to a new level. And sometimes I've been in classrooms, the students and the teacher didn't even realize the students could get that far or work at that level. So it's pushing us, which is great. And if we want to compete globally, I don't think we have a choice. I think we all know that. So with that being said, I would be thrilled to pass on any of the documents that we've created with the permission of our administrators. It's about working smarter, not harder. So thank you, Matt. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this.
We appreciate your summary and giving us a real good update of what's going on. One more comment, I think, from Amy Assessos. Do you have time, Sharon, to stay on for Amy?
Yes.
Yes.
Amy, go ahead.
When you mentioned the fact that they want the students to be at a higher reading level, I find it difficult at times to give the students all a reading assignment that they all can read and understand because they are at such different levels. I actually have students that are at 4th and 5th grade reading levels, and it makes it really difficult. Do you have any ideas for me there?
Oh, you know what? Thank you for sharing that, because we have a group of teachers. There's 12 of us, and we're actually in a professional learning community focused on differentiated instruction. The text we're using, and I'd be happy to share that with you, is helping us to see that we really do need to differentiate. And sometimes we're using Lexile levels in many of the labs because they're each addressing it. In our HOSA lab, they're addressing texts that are at the 1300 Lexile level. And if you're not sure what a Lexile level is, those are the reading levels that are discussed in the Common Core. That's something that your instructional coach, and I think Robin said that. If you're fortunate enough to have an instructional coach, work with that instructional coach to help you find out who your higher and lower performing, where your kids are at, starting with that and making them successful and giving them the tools and the strategies that they need in order to perform. And sometimes in our differentiated professional learning community, in our PLC, we're finding we have a math teacher that sometimes they just need 1 or 2 things and then they take off. It's been it's been an amazing group to work with because that differentiation is critical to student success. So thank you for sharing that.
I think it continues. Go ahead, Amy.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it is a struggle. I don't think the Common Core is going to make it go away. It's just going to change it maybe a little bit, in a little different context. And Robin contributes that the coach in the building should be able to help the instructor marry the engagement strategies to the standards. So lean on those coaches in your building to see if they can help you out. Sharon, once again, thanks for being with us, and we're going to let you go so that we can transition, and I think it's a great transition to our next part, which is to talk about literacy strategies in just a little bit more detail. With us on the line this morning is both Tracy Stetler and Robin Grimes. Tracy's with Reading-Muhlenberg CPC and Robin with the Erie County Technical School. And in no particular order, I'm going to start with Tracy, and I think she has some slides. So, Tracy, I'll turn it over to you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
A little slow here, but I'm going to switch over to the slides to you. So it should be coming your way.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
We can.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for having me today. My name is Tracy Stetler. I'm the Literacy Integration Specialist at Reading-Muhlenberg Career and Technology Center. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that Reading-Muhlenberg is doing. We have a full-time literacy and numeracy specialist here in the building. And really what I do at the beginning of every student's time here at the school, whether they're coming in as a 10th grader, 11th grader, whatever, they're giving a reading assessment and also a learning style assessment. The reading assessment is a Gates-McGinnity assessment that the students take, and they also do a learning style assessment online through Penn State, and that information is passed on to the instructors so they are well aware of what their students' reading levels are as well as their learning style. And it's interesting for the students to understand their learning style. Some are surprised by what they find out when they take the assessment, and we have some good conversation along with the different types of learning styles. As far as professional development goes, our teachers in our building have been instructed on max teaching strategies. I help them with helping them with max teaching strategies, and I also do some after-school activities that involve some refresher max strategies. We all, I think, sometimes tend to fall into a rut where we're doing the same types of strategies over and over. They're working in our class, but maybe we want to spice things up a little bit or think about something that we haven't tried before or something new that someone has kind of spun on their own. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, how some of our instructors here in this building have taken different max teaching strategies and created their own kind of way of spinning it that works for them. So we share some of those things in the after-school refreshers, I call them. We have a great collaboration between the instructors and the coaches. I'm a former CTE instructor myself for 12 years, and so I understand the ins and outs of the classroom as far as CTE, and I understand the challenges that are faced by the teachers in this building, and I try to be there in support of some of the things that they come across. So I've been in their shoes. I understand where they're coming from, and I help them get past some things. We have a shared file that we have all of our documents on that relates to literacy and numeracy. So if we prepare, let's say, an anticipation guide, there's templates on there for those things so that the teacher does not have to recreate the wheel when it comes to those things. It's there for them to fill in. If they need some inspiration about something, maybe they want a new vocabulary strategy, they're in there, a new way to do writing to learn, whatever, it's all in there. And during in-services, we do some peer-to-peer training. We always cover a literacy or numeracy or both strategy in our in-service meetings. And we also incorporate Skills for a Lifetime, which is SRAB initiative that teaches students the 6 habits of success. This is a slide that shows our word of the day that we show every day, a different word. These are SAT words that are on the TV screens in every classroom. Now the teachers also incorporate a content area word of the day in addition to using this word. So, the teachers have their own way of using this word. Sometimes it's used for journaling. Sometimes it's used to play games. They'll collect, 10 words from the last 2 weeks and play a game with the words. Same with their content area words of the day. So most teachers do get involved with the words of the day as far as it goes with vocabulary. We also have a reading program, and students read books, magazines, newspapers, online articles, whatever, and they turn in a summary sheet. They turn in 5-paragraph essays, and they are all logged in as points and used for prizes. And the prizes include movie passes, lunch in the restaurant, Staples gift cards for the instructors who are encouraging their students to be involved in the program. And this is supported by our milk and tea vending machine. This is how we fund the movie passes, the lunches, and things like that. And program areas are really encouraged to have a variety of reading materials for their students. And I'm going to start out by saying, as far as the reading program goes, it's voluntary for the teachers in the building to participate in. The students can do this on their own if they want to, or they're reading a book for one of their English classes back at their home school, and they do a 5-paragraph essay. It counts towards this program. So any books that they're reading, I encourage teachers to have magazines and newspaper articles that are relevant to their program area. I think that it's important that there's a relevance. As the cosmetology teachers in my building know, I provide them, if I see articles that relate to a specific topic that has to do with cosmetology, I will give them that article. They will choose to use it in whatever way they would like. I can help them with creating supplemental materials that could go with the article. But the bottom line is they use the article in a way that's related to their program area. So if it's a article on hair coloring, let's say, they're using it along with the chapter, along with materials that are presented with hair coloring. It's not, just a random article that's given to students to read, that maybe doesn't have too much meaning for them in their program area. Now,
Tracy, can I interrupt you just a moment? Let's just ask you if there's anyone who would like to share what reading articles you use, maybe a book, magazine, or newspaper, or something that has been successful in your classroom. Just let us know. Use either the question box and write something in, or raise your hand and we'll unmute your microphone. But it might be kind of good just to hear what others are using. In your school, Tracy, you've given them several articles that they use in the classroom as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I can develop some supplemental materials that go with it, whether it be an anticipation guide or some sort of outline that the students can follow while they're reading. We do, sensible sentence highlighting with it. There's all different ways that we use articles. But the most important part about using the articles is the relevance to, what the students are covering, in my opinion. And exactly. Not that I don't use other articles. I do use other articles that have to do with professionalism. We all, teach our students, the ways of being professional in the industry. One I did last week had to do with foul language. So that could be used across the board for any program area. We all deal with that issue, and there was some good discussion from students when we did that article. So, it can be something like that as well. That's maybe not completely covering what you're discussing in your program area, but relative because it's a professionalism issue.
Yes, it's something they still use.
Right.
Well, we don't have any questions right now, so let's go ahead and I'll let you continue, and I'll try not to interrupt you.
Okay. No, that's okay. I tend to go fast, so sorry.
All right.
Something that we do a lot in our school here is called process writing, and this is writing out the steps to a process. In cosmetology, there's a lot of processes, steps to performing a perm, a hair color, hair cutting, even draping a client, you know, for various reasons. You know, cosmetology is very process-oriented, and I think that some of this is helpful when students are thinking about the NOCTI exam and taking their state boards, that you know, this becomes a deeper understanding for the students when they write a process down and when they think about the logical sequence of steps, and they gain a better understanding of how to you know, complete that process. It also is a good practice when you're taking state boards, when you're doing the NOCTI exam. It's very stressful for students. They forget sometimes what they're doing, maybe forget a step because they're nervous, or, you know, it's, you know, a stressful time for students to go through these tests, and the writing down of the process just solidifies even more what, you know, when they're nervous, they forget. This way, it even helps that keep them in their mind the steps that are involved. You're making sure you list every step, even if you think it's easy, keeping the audience in mind, you know, who are you writing the steps for? And then exchanging papers, letting each other kind of look at each other's paper. What did you forget? Is there anything that we missed? And trying it again. This is an example of how we did this in horticulture. Now, I'm showing examples that are not cosmetology at this point, but can be carried over. Any of these can be carried over into any program area. I'm just showing some examples that I had. In horticulture, we talked about how to make a corsage. So this could be how to drape a client, and think about what the first, second, third, you know, greeting the customer, you know, sitting the customer down, making sure the chair is lowered so they can get in the chair easily. You know, those kinds of things are things that sometimes students don't think about, that they do automatically, but need, you know, to be thought about when they're writing these steps. You know, determining the color, you know, flower types, the budget, when is the order due, you know, having, you know, some conversation with the client. You know, in this case, there were actually some sub-steps, which are in red here. It's not just wire the flowers. If it's this type of flower, you must use this method. If it's another type of flower, use another method. So there were multiple, even, you know, sub-steps there that were involved with this. So we go down. The students do this independently first, then we do it as a large group on the smartboard in this case, or on a whiteboard, and, you know, we kind of get it down to, here are the steps that we do for this process. And then a student actually taught me, using these steps, how to make a corsage. And, you know, we did it from start to finish. One thing that wasn't on this list that we did at the very end was we costed everything out. We added our percentage for labor and things like that, so there was a math activity involved in the end of that one as well. So, you know, there were steps on here that we thought about even after we were already finished and had to go another step further, and that step isn't on here. So, you know, by doing these things, and now we'll take this, and a student will create a poster, and this can be placed in the room as a final activity. This was another way we did a process log in cabinet making, and it was making a letter holder, and this was a different way of doing it because we only had a picture. I want to make this letter holder, and I only have a picture. How am I going to do it? What is the process going to be? I don't have any other information other than I have a picture. So what's the first thing we need to do? And, you know, so many students, you know, get the wood, get the stain, do this, and, you know, we didn't even determine the size of the letter holder. We didn't determine the measurements, you know, and the first thing we did then was measure the size of a standard envelope so that the opening for the letter is the proper size. And, you know, we went through this whole process and taking pictures, and the student actually, we created a prototype. The student put the item together. We ended up with a final letter holder that will be painted or stained, and that was the end result of this. And it, again, it's a thought process that's involved here that the students aren't maybe used to putting on paper or putting down in words. Another way of analyzing some technical instruction is by looking at already instructions that are already, you know, in with the packaging, you know, maybe perm instructions, and reading those instructions. thinking about who the audience is and what are these instructions helping to do. Are they easy? Are they difficult to follow? Are they effective or ineffective? Are the pictures appropriate for what's being shown in the text or being read in the text? So we talk about those things when we analyze instructions. Some instructions now do not even come with any written instructions. It's a picture. I kind of refer to the old IKEA effect where everything's kind of a photograph or a picture or a diagram, and there's no words with it. You just look and try to figure out which goes where. And students sometimes have problems with this. They want to see written instructions. So, we ask them to write instructions for those pictures. And they enjoy doing that, and they use those then when they do the process themselves and follow the directions themselves when it comes to reading the directions. We use Cornell notes and two-column notes. This is a way of taking notes that the students use. Main ideas are on the left, and notes and supporting information, facts, definitions are on the right, and then at the end you summarize. Now, this is the basic way of taking Cornell notes, and this is a student in early childhood education that was taking Cornell notes from her textbook. And this is it in its simplest form, but we also do it in a way that can be customized to what you're covering. So in Autotech, this instructor actually uses some scaffolds. And you see how it doesn't look quite like the first picture I showed. The vocabulary is still on the left, the notes are on the right, there's a summary at the bottom, but he has the vocabulary words already built in as a scaffold to help students find the right, what the teacher wants them to cover. So if you want your students to cover, or write down specific vocabulary words, give them to them or direct them in the text where to find them. And it's very systematic, very, specific about what the students should be covering in their notes. And then the instructor will go through this and make sure that the students have the correct notes on the right-hand side for them to study. This is another way that the automotive technology instructor works Cornell notes. It is boxes, and he has exactly what he wants them to write notes on. Basic engine. What do we know about a basic engine? And we see the 1, 2, 3 there. We have drive lines and running gear, and we have what's involved with that. Suspension systems, fuel systems, ignition, lubrication. All that is notes from students. And then at the end of that note-taking, he will review with his students exactly what is on these notes, exactly what he wants the students to have in their notes and cover in their notes. I think note-taking is, yes, take notes, but we don't check to see whether they have the proper information. And when they go to study for a test, do they have what they need to study? What they thought might be important isn't what maybe you are going to cover on this exam or whether you think is important or not. And checking those notes and doing it as a group and making sure they have what they need to study for the test and the information they need to be successful in their industry is there. So it's not just about taking notes, it's about also the checking and being sure that what the students are taking notes on is what is relevant. This is an example of something new we are starting this year. We are actually piloting this in motorcycle, marine, and small engine, and also electrical shop. And we actually have one of the cosmetology teachers interested in using this. This is a weekly journal that we developed for students to fill out. It's a daily sheet that is done. It's a packet that's a week long, and every day the students are required to do some writing and some math. So this would be the cover. This doesn't look very terrific because it's actually in Publisher, and it didn't transition very well into PowerPoint for me. But this would be what the cover would look like of the book. It's completed book is worth 100 points towards your daily grade or your weekly grade. And this is an example of what Monday's assignment would be. So Monday's word of the day is worth 5 points, and this is the content, program area word of the day. In this case, governors, and the student would write the definition and write a sentence that is, an appropriate sentence for what is being covered in the program area for governors. Then there's 2 math problems. Each are worth, they're worth 5 points. And then the student also writes a paragraph of the day. This one is on explain manual throttle controls. So the student will write a paragraph. There's a rubric in the packet. There is tips in the packet about how to write a paragraph. And, the motorcycle small engine teacher has done much writing with his students, does a lot of writing. And the students are very well-versed in how to write a paragraph. So they don't have too much issue with doing this. It could be a challenge in classes where there isn't much writing going on, but it's a good way to introduce writing and paragraph writing to students. It's all relative to what's being covered in that particular week. It's geared towards the theory lesson of the day. So his theory lesson of the day will be explaining the manual throttle controls, reviewing the math problems. This takes about 20 minutes per day for the student to do. So they're doing this activity for about 20 minutes and then including the theory lesson that goes along with it. So the instructor will do the theory lesson. At the end of the week, we also have activities that kind of seal everything up into one big package. We use the words of the day to come up with, we use a game at the end of the week that goes over the words of the day. We use some other activities that discuss the various paragraphs that were done throughout that week or the 2-week period, however long the assignment lasts. In this case, carburation, or in electrical, it was service entrances. It may last 2 weeks, it may last 1 week, it may last 3 weeks. So it just depends on how long your chapter is, how long your, the task is that you want to cover for that particular period of time. And this is a template. This is a template that can be changed very easily. So it's changed every week. Different words are put in, math problems that are related to what's being covered, and paragraphs that are related to what's being covered.
Tracy, we're going to have to wrap up so we can get to Robin, but
Okay.
I want to hear from others who are doing some writing, maybe in the classroom, if they have some questions as you finish your slides, because it would be interesting to know what you do, those of you who are on the webinar with writing in your classroom. I know you have a couple more slides. Tracy, if you could go through those fairly quickly so we can get to Robin, that would be great.
Yes, I don't want to take up Robin's time. She has some great things too. Flashcards on dictionary.com are great to use. There are other sites for flashcards and things that I know other instructors use. Of course, vocabulary is huge in cosmetology. These are profile boards that we use in different classrooms. I know cosmetology teachers in my building use posters. Some of them use pasta shapes to reflect some of the nail disorders or things like that. Some of them are done in the shape of cosmetology items, like in the shape of a hair dryer or a hand with nails on it, and they, will discuss the different, nail shapes or things like that. Cubing is a max teaching activity that is used to compare, analyze, associate, argue, describe, apply a certain topic. Question mark cards are done and used for higher level thinking skills. They kind of go along with the Bloom's taxonomy. Sometimes they're used to create questions for tests. These aren't only used by teachers, they can be used by students to come up with questions, or what would you predict or infer from blah, blah, or whatever text they're using. And then this is my contact information. Sorry, I went real fast there at the end, but wanted to make sure Robin has her time. And if anybody has any questions about what I covered, or, this just scratches the very brief surface of the things that we do here at Reading Muhlenberg when it comes to literacy and numeracy. And if anyone has any questions about anything that relates to literacy or things that I covered, they can contact me.
Tracy, this is great. I especially like your examples of what you're doing. I think it's great for us to see what others are doing all the time. That's one of the benefits of having a professional learning community, even though it's on a webinar, just to kind of share the ideas.
Yes.
So,
and hopefully
Tracy,
the instructors, can share some of the things that they've done because they do some really wonderful things here. They
yes.
really do.
we'd love to hear from you on the webinar. Please raise your hand if you want to make a comment on something that you do in your classroom related to literacy, or if you have a question, you're certainly, or comment, certainly willing or encouraged to write that into the question box, because Tracy's going to be here for, I think, a couple more minutes.
Yes.
So this is very good information. I appreciate that, Tracy. As you're preparing some questions, those of you who are on the webinar, I'm going to ask you to do one more poll real quick before we introduce Robin. It relates to literacy strategies. You should be able to see the poll on your screen. It'll just take 30 seconds here and answer the question. This will help us get a better idea, Tracy and Robin, what the level of using literacy strategies is. Maybe everybody's doing them well enough. Looks like it's pretty good. Give you about 10 more seconds here to answer the poll according to what you do. So it looks like everyone's doing something with literacy strategies in the classroom. That's great. Oh, I guess you guys can't see the results, can you? Oh, here, let me share.
I can't, no.
I'm watching it on my little private screen, but here's the results you can see. Now that I can share everything with you all. But it looks like 61% regularly integrate, and 39% say starting to, and some of these strategies are helpful. So comments on that, Tracy and Robin, what do you think?
Well, for me, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
For me, that is a great advance, or a great change from what I think I was looking at 5 years ago when I came into our building, where we had introduced, in professional development seminars and things, the MAX teaching strategies. But then having a coach on board, I think a math coach and a literacy coach, we're only part-time. So I'm sitting in a nice spot, having 2 full-time faculty members to help other faculty members. I think that's a great thing. But I think that having someone on board actually to bring those things together, the strategies, the standards, and then the content, and just help teachers. I think teachers are so overwhelmed with so much. I mean, they're moving from the time they get in the building till the time they go home, and then at home as well. So I understand that as a previous classroom teacher myself. So it's nice to have somebody just to come in and say, okay, you could do it this way. I mean, I've been thinking about your class, and you could try these things. So I'm really happy to see that those numbers are way up. Did you want me to start my presentation, Matt?
Matt, this is Jennifer. Do you have your microphone muted by chance? Hopefully we haven't lost you.
Jennifer, did you hear me?
I did hear you, yes. It
okay,
looks
thanks.
like, let's see, looks like Matt is maybe trying to turn over the presentation. Did you have some slides that you wanted to share?
Some slides. Well, you know what? Matt has them.
Okay.
About them yesterday.
I'm sorry.
There's
I
Matt.
muted my phone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Matt.
Sure.
Okay, that's great. And I just have some documents for you, Robin. Is that correct? I don't think I have any.
Yeah, and I won't. We do a lot of the same kinds of things that Tracy's doing at Reading, and I've had the pleasure, I think, of meeting Tracy a couple times at different functions downstate. So I, admire and have actually, incorporated some of her ideas. But one thing that I sort of felt like we needed at Erie County Tech when I came into the building was we needed to, people were strategies, and they were getting just sick of the word. They're getting thrown so many strategies that what I really wanted them to see, and so we made this literacy plan more formalized, is to that what you're really going for, no matter what you're reading, is comprehension or making meaning from text, and that can be, test questions, it can be textbook, it can be trade journal articles that you happen to want students to read. It doesn't matter, but the point is that they need to go through all these cognitive milestones to really be able to comprehend the text, and so. So what we do is we focus on like two target areas, two cognitive target areas a quarter, and so it'll be build background knowledge and vocabulary acquisition, however you want to make it. And we do different things, different years. You know, we do SAT words as well. We do word walls, and you know, but whatever the goal is, I sort of meet with the teachers and say, how are you achieving these? How can I help you achieve these in your content area? So that's kind of what we do. And I mean, you could put a couple different ones in here. I just picked out the ones that seem to be the most important for high school level reading. So those are the ones. And we've been working with this for about 4 years, and it's been working out pretty well. And our cosmetology teacher is one in particular that will fill this chart out and make sure that she's at least hitting, all she has to do is show a couple, you know, at the end of the year that she's done this a couple of times a quarter. And so she'll show, and she'll do it other times. They all do it multiple times, but, you know, just to formalize it and show how you've done it is really what we're going for there, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and understanding what our goal is with teaching students how to comprehend our text. So are there any questions about that? I mean, we do all kinds of things with the different teachers, and my goal is whenever I teach a lesson in our classes, I always put a standard on and in my lesson, and then the strategy can be different. The other thing that we're doing, I know that people were interested in the NOCTI assessment, and Jan Kennernack, who is our curriculum development person here, has really taken it upon herself to look at the data every time a class takes an NOCTI to see which areas are high scoring and which are lower scoring. And while the students typically do pretty well, very well in NOCTI, there are always a couple of areas that the teachers just can't anticipate it's going to be on the test. And so we'll hit those low areas, and then we're using a lot of our RTII strategies this year to kind of formally look at that data and have instructors address those areas by using some different kinds of strategies. And I'll go into the classroom and help them. And they get a little overwhelmed sometimes, but I'll go in and I'll help them just look at their low scores and then just say, well, you know, what is it you want to teach? If it's motor controls, okay, well, let's do motor controls, and what kind of projects can we do to get students engaged? It's really all about engagement, getting them interested so that they have a vested interest in wanting to learn it. So that's really what we've been working on here lately. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Don't seem to have any questions right now, Robin. So
okay.
I'll show a couple of other documents here talking about. We just have about 3 more minutes.
Okay, this is just one of our auto tech teachers wanted to look at an article he had seen in a trade article in a trade journal about why students aren't getting their license like they were back in the 70s when we were getting our license. And so, you know, this is kind of an anticipation guide. There's a before reading activity and an after reading activity. And the before reading activity, if you can scroll up there, Matt. I'm sorry, I didn't get to look at it. We're looking at so for 2 minutes, work with the buddies. I think pair share activity to list as many reasons as they could as to why kids weren't getting their license, you know, based upon that quote that was pulled out of the article. And the students had a lot to say about this one. They were very interested in it, and interestingly, a lot of their reasons kind of concurred with some of the things in the article, and the other reasons that the article didn't bring up at all, I think, for whatever reason, the students sort of hit on the nail. And then afterwards, they had to, after they read, they had to kind of sum up what the author was saying. Again, sort of question the author, you know, and asking them if they agreed with what the author had to say about the content or the message of the article. So, you know, just and these are auto tech kids. They don't particularly love to read. That's why, you know, I like the list format and read and write. I like the list format on top, and then a little more writing at the bottom with just a little paragraph of summing up. So again, it's finding an article that they'll be interested in, and this was chosen by the lab instructor himself, and he just pulled me in to help him figure out how to present it in a way that would be engaging and hit some of those strategies in standard areas. And then here, we get the newspaper. I'm sure a lot of you do. We get the newspaper a couple times a week, and we used to read an article a week on the building all together. And, you know, but a lot of the instructors said, no, we really want to choose our own content area, and that's fine. But a lot of people still do read the newspapers and have kids present, like quick presentations, you know, a minute and a half up in front of class saying what they got out of the article. So they'll think, pair, share on that one, and then have students kind of get up and speak. I mean, they're really trying to get them to speak in public and not be embarrassed, and to take some quick notes to work from in that speech. And that's one thing that construction trades likes to do. Here's another little thing that auto tech likes to do, and you could do this with anything. You could do it with Cosmo. I think we did this with haircuts and Cosmo as well. We did a Vidal Sassoon article looking at the different cuts that he used and why he was such an iconic figure in the industry. But here we're going to read an article on Louis Chevrolet, and so just to get kids thinking and working together again, and I think pair share activity before reading, we just, you know, pulled a lot of the brand labels, or whatever you call those things, you know, the logos off of Google, and just try to ask students how many of these they recognize. And they recognize maybe, you know, maybe 2/3 of them, but there were some they really didn't recognize, and it was kind of fun to try and stump them. And then they sort of had more of a vested interest in learning about Louis Chevrolet and how his brand got put onto the Chevrolet cars. So that's just a couple of examples of what we do to try to get kids engaged, trying to get them invested in the reading, to make it meaningful to them, to make those connections with, you know, stuff they see around them every day, and then what's actually in the text. So I'm happy to field any questions. I'm sure a lot of you are doing things like this and finding it fairly successful, and not to sell yourself short. My advice to my faculty all the time is don't sell yourself short. You're already doing a lot of this stuff already. It's just a matter of putting that into language that you can sort of say, yes, this meets a certain standard, this meets a certain level of engagement, and then just knowing how to pair the two up.
This is great information, Robin. It's great to see some of these visuals. So we hope that some of you will have some questions for Robin, and Tracy had to leave us, but especially if you're struggling with communicating some literacy strategies or reading to some students, either they are unwilling to read or are having some difficulty with reading or perhaps comprehension. Sharon, you were on the line with us earlier, and I'm sorry, Robin, you were on the line with us earlier when one of our instructors said that he had to tell his kids that sometimes they're doing a lot more reading than they think when they're looking at instructional manuals and when they're reading instructions for even something short. It may not be a formal book, something they quote-unquote call reading, but they do it all the time.
Right. And, you know, I guess the thing I want to say, too, to address one of the teacher's concerns earlier about her different levels of reading in the classroom, different reading abilities, is that, you know, the nice thing about these little pre-reading activities is it does let everyone, or forces everyone, to get involved. The one where we did, list the reasons why kids can't drive, even if you got a kid in there who is not particularly a great reader, they can still articulate why they don't have their license or why their brother doesn't have his license. And so you pair them up with a kid who's comfortable doing the writing, and then they each have something that they can bring to the discussion. So I'm all about, you know, coming up with ways to get everybody vested in the discussion, and you can do that by simply by making lists rather than having them write paragraphs or using pictures and then just one-word answers. You know, it's all about just really just getting them to be interested enough to want to put something down on paper. And then they really do feel like they have something to add. There's nothing worse than asking questions and the student just hasn't had enough time to process it, and they can't answer that question as fast as the kid two seats down. So this gives everybody a chance to think before they read.
Yeah. Robin, we had a question. We talked last PLC about formative assessments and ways of knowing if students are progressing well enough to pass the NOCTI exams, Keystone exams, if they're at the level they need to be. Do you have suggestions for teachers who might not know if their students are at that level that they need to be?
You know, we do take measures here, and that's a great question because that does come up with my own faculty sometimes. So what we do a little differently than Tracy does, and when she tests everyone when they walk in the building, we rely on the tests for general students. Generally we rely on the test from previously the PSSA 8th grade benchmark. And we will flag those kids who did not meet proficient or who just barely met proficient, and we will target some of them to go into a sort of a once-a-week kind of little lesson. Then we'll usually get 50, 60, 70 kids who participate in that. As for the NOCTI, they do, I think all the labs do, or they used to, and I think they still do with Jan Kinderneck's under Jan Kinderneck's supervision, a pre-NOCTI exam. And they will use, you know, how I was talking about they are doing this NOCTI, these NOCTI plans, you know, these NOCTI improvement plans. They will do a pre-NOCTI test and to see how they think the students are going to fare on the NOCTI coming up in the spring. So yeah, that's one way we try and check to see how we're doing against the state, you know, state averages.
Good.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's for me, and I assume that other teachers are using the pre-NOCTI exams, and that may help them out, and maybe they're using some other interim or formative or intermediate assessments that are visually or quizzes or tests. Just to determine
Right. Yeah, you know, and the NOCTI has those preparation packets. You know, and so I know some students, I know one guy, and I used that NOCTI prep packet to create a journal where students could, you know, like Tracy, similar to what Tracy does, but we do it with the NOCTI prep question. And they would go in and try and answer that NOCTI prep question and then discuss it. So, you know, that's one way of getting ready for a more formative assessment. And that worked out pretty well for him, I think, because he scored pretty well, I think, in his last NOCTI. So, I mean, I think, you know, there's a lot of different avenues there, and it sounds like, you know, as long as you're doing something, it's better than, you know, doing nothing at all.
Wonderful. Robin, thank you for doing this in a very short order. Robin is still with us for the next couple of minutes, so if you do have a question, it's great to write it in the question box, or we'll be glad to still unmute your microphone. Just raise your hand so we know that you have a question to ask, and Robin will field those questions. So stay with us just for a few minutes, Robin. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes for those questions to come in. Sometimes it takes me a while just to process the question. Let me just remind you that we will be posting these materials on the FAS website, so you will have a chance to look at them in more detail. And we're going to tell you more about getting onto that FAS website in just a moment. I'm going to turn it back to Jennifer, my colleague, to explain that. A reminder of upcoming webinar dates for cosmetology teachers. The next webinar, the PLC, will be on March 12th. Again, it'll be unlike this morning, it will be an afternoon session, 1:30 to 3 p.m. And we'll be focusing on that, on the topic of CTE math integration into cosmetology classes during that March 12th PLC. And then we'll have another on the April 23rd where we'll wrap up and report out. And just a reminder of the June meeting, June 26th through the 28th with PAC Tech this summer. Starting to look forward to summer, which is always great. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jen and let her describe just a little bit more about the SAS and getting on the PD SAS website. Jennifer?
Okay, thank you, Matt. This will be a refresher for many of you, but we did want to just show you again the community site that we have set up for our cosmetology PLC and how to access that and make use of the resources that are beginning to be posted there. So I'm going to take over the presentation control for just a moment there. And let's see. Great. So everyone right now hopefully is seeing the pdesas.org site. And I'll just give you a quick refresher on how to access the page for our PLC. I've already logged in to my account, so I will then go to the upper right-hand corner where it says Teacher Tools and click on that, which then takes you to this menu. And from here, I will select My Communities. And what you'll see listed here are the various communities to which I belong since I'm involved with all the PLC groups. Many of them are listed here already. If you haven't yet joined the PLC Cosmetology group, you can find it by doing a keyword search in this box at the top where there's a little magnifying glass. And you'll want to type in keywords, for example, BCTE PLC, and do a search. That should bring up the list of the various PLC groups. And from there, you'll be able to identify the cosmetology group and to join that group. All of our PLC groups are open to anyone with a SAS account, so we encourage you to invite your colleagues to participate, and if you are interested in multiple groups of different topic areas, please feel free to join and to become involved with those groups. So looking then specifically at our cosmetology page, there we go, as it loads here, just to point out at the bottom of the page is where, bottom of the website, is where we have the resources and materials posted. And we're continuing to build out this area, so what you'll see right now, the topic headers, that first one, PLC information and materials, in there is where you can find the webinar response form template and some general information related to the PLCs. But specifically, I wanted to point out to you the literacy integration resources. And I'll click on that header. When you click on the header, it then shows you the various resources that are posted. And here you'll see quite a few examples that were posted by our PLC members from last year, and we'll continue to add to this with the resources and information that you've seen today. So please take a look through those, and if you yourself have resources that you would like to share, please forward those to us. You can send those to us via email, and they can be in any type of format, whether it's a Word document, PowerPoint, PDF file. Fortunately, we can post pretty much any type of format up to this site, and then to share those with your colleagues. Also, just to note, we do have a folder set up here for NOCTI skill area lessons, and I'll click on that to expand that. And we are beginning to build out that resource area as well, and eventually we'll break those up into specific headers for the different areas so that it's easier to find that information. But just wanted to remind you of this great resource and encourage you to take a look at it. If you have items that you would like to share, please do forward those to us because we want this to become a great place for you to go if you are looking for ideas or information. Thank you. Turn it back over to you, Matt.
And so it's a great resource. Thanks for summarizing that. I always forget how to find those, so I'm glad for that reminder. Thanks, Jennifer. Well, we're wrapping up our webinar for today. We do still have Robin with us on the line, so if you do have some questions, feel free to put them in the question box, and even after we conclude, we'll try to get those to Robin. You can also email them to us at paplc@meterconsulting.com, and we'll be sure to get those to Robin. Robin, thanks for being with us. Tracy Statler was also here, and Sharon Kinney, and great to have that information. Thanks to all the teachers who joined us today. We'll see you during our next webinar in March. Have a great afternoon and morning. Thank you.